Welcome. Welcome to the Thursday, November 9th, 2023 meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. This meeting is being held in person and electronically via Zoom. Members of the public who would like to comment on hearings or other matters may do so in person or virtually. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 206-337-9723 or toll-free 877-853-5247. Enter meeting ID 965-3669-9762. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN. CTN can be found on Xfinity Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, streaming online on YouTube, or at a2gov.org/watchctn. We intend to conduct this hybrid meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. First of all, I want to just address the obvious here, which is I read this in an email that the city sent out, and let me just talk about the mural for a second. This City Council Chambers is adorned with a new ceiling mural entitled, "They Will All Be Dreaming." This was just painted a couple weekends ago by artist and Michigan resident Tess Marhover. So she has a quote here that staff and visitors are encouraged to look for themselves with the artist's reminder that even, this is a quote, even amidst the chaos of life, there's a tranquil world above, waiting to ignite our imagination and provide a sanctuary for dreamers and thinkers alike. I just thought that was really fitting for this commission. So anyway, got a new paint. I'll ask for comments later. Okay, and then that's not the only thing that's new. We actually have two new commissioners joining us for the first time today, or I should say this evening, and they're going to introduce themselves. And so let's start with Chip.
Hi, everybody. Nice to join you. Thanks for having me on this commission. I'm Chip Smith. I'm an urban planner. Lots of people might know me because I was on city council for a long time. Been retired from that for a couple of years now, but seeing that there was opportunities to serve again, I was happy to step forward and offer my expertise.
Thank you, Chip. Steve.
Hi, my name's Steve Kaplan, local property manager, and I guess an amateur fan of historic houses. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So that's Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Kaplan joining us today. Thank you to both of you for joining. Now, Ms. Thatcher, will you please call the roll?
It's nice to have a full house again. Commissioner Fortner.
Here.
Commissioner Calderon.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
Commissioner Ross. Commissioner Quijano. Here. Commissioner Kaplan.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Fantastic. We'll move on to approval of the agenda, and I'm wondering if there are any additions, deletions, or changes to tonight's agenda, and I'm not seeing any, so without objection, the agenda is approved as presented, and we'll move on to D, public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed on as a public hearing on this agenda. To comment on such other preservation matters, please call in using the information displayed on the meeting agenda and video feed. City staff will select callers one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. To electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the House is allowing you to speak. Do we have everyone? No. We don't have anyone calling, and there's no one stepping forward here, so we will move on from public comment and go to E, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business, so we will move on to F, hearings, and we will begin with our first and only hearing, F1, 549 South 1st Street. Ms. Thatcher, please.
549 South 1st Street is in the Old West Side Historic District. First appears in city directories in 1896 as number 99, the home of contractor Henry Cook and his wife Mary. Christian Cook, a mason, lived across the street at number 96, and both worked for Cook Brothers Construction, which built many of Ann Arbor's most notable buildings. Let's see, Henry and Mary's son Harold was a founding member of the Old West Side Association. This house is a 2-story gable fronter with corner returns, a brick chimney, a second-floor triple window facing the street, a stone front porch with wing walls and round tapered half columns, a front window with a leaded glass transom, and a cut stone and natural stone foundation. This house on 1931 and 1948 Sanborns is a 2-story house with a 1-story wing in the back. At some point in modern days, the 1-story in the back got a second-floor addition that we're talking about altering today. Just walking around the house, you can see that it's a very interesting foundation because there's so many kinds of stone used. The north side and most of the rear elevation have lovely cut stone blocks, like the ones that you see here on the porch. I believe that the porch would have been added later. These stone porches didn't come into vogue until after the turn of the century, but it has been around for a long time. You can see it's had a lot of repointing done, and it's a little bit of a mess there. The way that the stones are put together when they were repointed. Walking around the house, this is the south side. You can see that there's a fence that bisects the house behind this first window. And part of the application is to move this fence forward to the front corner of the house. And right down here behind this trash can, we'll get to photos later, an egress window would be installed because they're hoping to dig the basement down to a 9-foot ceiling to make that usable space. Here's another picture showing the fence. It's 6 feet along the front here. It's 8 feet on the side, and there's another 8-foot section in the backyard. We'll get to the layout of the new fence, but it's basically to pull it forward and connect up here with another 6-foot section and leave or rebuild the fence that's there in its existing heights. This is the north elevation of the house. Not a lot of work proposed on this side. A couple of skylights are proposed on the roof. A big AC unit would be replaced with 2 mini splits, and the line sets would be on the interior of the house. The red brick chimney is proposed to be removed because of work that's going on the interior of the house. This is the front gable. This is a modern, I believe, vent from photos that were provided showing the interior of the building. You see these vents a lot in the attic facing the street or facing the rear. Usually, though, they're more proportioned like a window, like it would be taller than it is wide. It would be strange to see one of these proportions as an original part of the house. Now, I got a little bit out of order here. We're in the back of the house. So the first floor used to go across to probably about here and then stop. And this was a wooden porch with a roof over it. You know, just a back porch similar to the front porch. When you're standing here, you can see that this corner has a new CMU block foundation. Looks a lot like this, where a window or a coal chute or something was infilled on the back of the house. So it's very easy to pick out where the old and the new are. This window is clearly modern, as is this awning and the door back here. So when this second floor was added as sort of an extension to a bedroom upstairs, I believe, sort of a sunroom with a lot of windows, this other work was done at the same time. It's not known whether there were windows back here. There probably was a window or two. But certainly they were not this big, and they wouldn't have had this boxed out trim that doesn't really match anything else on the house. So I believe that this is all non-historic. Another view of the back of the house. Here's that AC unit where the mini splits would go. There is an attic window, a very standard wood attic window that would be lost because part of the proposal is to take the hipped roof that's currently on the second floor and make it into a gable in order to give it more headroom on the interior. Here's that foundation, modern foundation I was telling you about. This used to be the porch. Now it's an enclosed interior space. It is nice that they set it in from the corner. The Secretary of the Interior appreciates that. Now we're on the south side of the house again. Now you can see, let's see. Do I have a good, now see, this is all sort of natural stone, not cut stone. I might not have a good picture of the cut stone, which is really gorgeous on the north elevation, which doesn't match the other elevations, which is strange. But this bay window is behind that fence that I showed you. Here's the fence post. And I included this because they're proposing to have a new egress well, and you wouldn't want it underneath your bay window. It's questionable whether that would be allowed by building code, but even if it were, that wouldn't be an ideal place to try to escape from. This is the window where the egress well would go. It's probably 12 feet back from the front corner of the house. Again, not ideal to put it this close to the street, but there are two other windows on the other side, and the opening that was filled in the back. But because of the floor layout and the stairs coming down, it wouldn't make sense to have your egress window well right next to where the basement stairs come in, or where there's already a basement door to the outdoors. Couple more photos of the fence. This is the northeast corner. You can see where the 8-foot rear fence back here hits the 6-foot side fence. 8-foot fences require HTC approval from the commission. Other fences are usually 6 foot and under are staff approval. All right, let's go through the submission from the applicant. These were updated as of today. Here's that crawl space with the new foundation that I was talking about on the back corner of the house. This is the lower level. This is the proposed lower level. Here we've got an egress window. Casement egress window, maintaining the width of the opening, which is good, just going down farther. Looks like this is also CMU. New window where that patch is in the back, which I think is a great idea. And this bit that is CMU now is proposed to be new CMU. Part of the application is to replace, to unbuild the stone basement walls and rebuild them in order to get to the underpinning that's in the basement and remove it and dig the basement down to a 9-foot headroom, and then to rebuild the walls with CMU and replace the stones above grade. That's part of the biggest work item in this application. The other part is to remove the roof framing that's there now and replace it with scissors trusses.
It's hard to see.
Yeah,
It's in our packet.
I think you're going to have to look, yeah, you might have to look in your packet to get a better view of it, because this is a little bit washed out. I can probably zoom in on it if you need me to, but it doesn't look great. I'm probably also going to leave that for the architect to explain. But these are revised drawings based on some comments that were made at the review committee and that clarify what the proposal is, which is appreciated. Now we're back to that egress window. Here we are. This must be the interior, straight up casement window. The other three windows and then a new fourth window are proposed to be replaced. They're just a single sash. I don't know if they're operable or not right now, but they would like to replace them with aluminum clad wood sashes, which I do think on basement windows is appropriate, because if you don't have cladding, it can be a problem with new windows. A little bit more information on the window well. There's an aluminum well cover with an operable hatch, which is a little bit unusual because usually people want, especially on the south side of the house, to get light in here, but I also understand the desire to keep frogs and mice out of there. So that's one way of doing that. Other work on the back of the house includes taking out a couple of those many, many windows, which is fine because it meets all the standards because they're not original. This whole second floor is not original. It's probably from the 70s or 80s, I'm guessing. Back here, that giant picture window would be shortened, and the trim simplified, boral trim. It would make it a little more proportionate. And the chimney is shown throughout and the drawings are proposed without the chimney. This is a good example of where the chimney would be and how it would be in the way of the floor plans that they've laid out if it were here, and it's also shown in the other floor plans. I didn't include them all here. There it is on the inside. You can see the framing, and the problems with the framing are explained very well in the application. They don't meet code. A whole lot of stuff on old houses don't meet code, but they are trying to address this. Here's the area of low headroom where all of those many, many windows are, and the current hip roof would be converted to a rear-facing gable. There are some drawings of the existing and proposed. Here you can see the new gable on the back, a couple of skylights, shortened window. The gable doesn't line up perfectly because this corner is at the same wall plane as the two-story wall, and this one, like I showed you, is set in 8 inches, so they start a little bit differently, but I think that's almost unnoticeable. And I appreciate that they've tried to match the roof pitch there as best they could, given that situation. Vents are shown on here, which is good for when if this project is approved and it comes to me, then I can not have to require all of the mechanical permits to have new HDC staff approvals. There's a couple of good pictures of the chimney that I included in here so that we can refer to those if we need to. And finally, the site plan showing the fences. So here we've got the fence moved forward with a new gate to match the fence, it says. And thought I had this figured out beforehand, but so here's the 6-foot fence height, and then we've got an 8-foot fence height back here by an accessory building that used to be a barn, and connecting, there's a little bit filled in the corner where there's no fence right now. Keep the existing gate and fence in the back, and this is also existing fence. So it's really this part, this would be moved out, this would be infilled, and this back corner would be infilled with new fence. So, from the Secretary of the Interior standards that best apply, number 1 says a property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Number 2 says the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. Removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. Number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. I selected some guidelines from the Secretary of the Interior and from Ann Arbor. There are many, many more that could be applied here, but I just went for the most obvious ones. Guidelines for new construction. It's appropriate to design new features so they are compatible with the historic character of the site, district, and neighborhood. It's not recommended to introduce new construction on the building site, which is visually incompatible in terms of size, scale, design, materials, color, and texture, or which destroys historic relationships on the site. From the guidelines for roofs, it's recommended to retain and preserve roofs and their functional decorative features that are important in defining the overall historic character of the building. This includes the roof's shape, decorative features such as chimneys, and roofing material. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for roofs, it's appropriate to retain and maintain original historic roofing materials, roof shape, dormers, cupolas, chimneys, and built-in or decorative gutters and downspouts. From the Ann Arbor Design Guidelines for masonry walls, trims, and foundations, it's appropriate to retain original masonry and mortar whenever possible without the application of any surface treatment, and to provide adequate drainage to prevent water from standing on flat horizontal surfaces. It's also appropriate repointing only those mortar joints where there's evidence of moisture problems or where sufficient mortar is missing to allow water to stand in the mortar joint. Also appropriate is duplicating old mortar in composition, color, texture, joint size, method of application, and joint profile. It is not appropriate to use power tools that can damage masonry units to remove mortar, and to use mortar containing high amounts of Portland cement where the historic mortar is soft and did not contain cement. From the design guidelines for safety codes, it's appropriate to comply with barrier-free and safety codes in a manner that ensures the preservation of character-defining features. Okay, I'm going to go back up here to the drawing set, and I'm going to see if I missed anything from the staff comments. The main roof structure is 2x4 rafters that are 24 inches on center. The sill height of the egress window would be lowered so that it's 5 feet 5 inches tall instead of 1 foot 11. Staff has concerns about disassembling and reassembling the foundation wall, whether the new appearance will match. And staff also has concerns about the chimney removal, since that's generally not considered appropriate under both the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines and the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines. But I think I hit all of my other comments. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thatcher. We'll now move on to the review committee. Commissioner Quijano and myself were on the review committee, so why don't you go first with your report and recommendation, please?
Sure. Actually, don't have a whole lot more to add. The staff report was pretty thorough and the application well organized, which is much appreciated. But just to mention that there was quite a bit of discussion walking around the property about the stone foundation walls, and we talked about possible methods of, how that would be documented and then reconstructed. So if there's any questions about that later, we can talk about that. Also, the new roof framing, it seems like our concerns were addressed by the updated drawings, but concerns about how the heads of the windows would be treated, or potentially impacted or not. Let's see. About the chimney, as we could see in the photographs, it's not a very ornate feature, but it is a character-defining feature of the property. A lot of the neighboring homes have a very similar feature, so it's of the setting and the district, I'd say. And that's all I have in my notes here.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Quijano. Let's see, so I will also mention the foundation stones. There's a lot of granite block foundations in that area, and I will say that for whatever reason, on the north side of the house, the foundation stones were extremely impressive, like really, really nice foundation stones. And, whoever the mason was that did all the tuck pointing and kind of was a little sloppy here and there, like at that one point, it just looked really good. And it just really reiterated the need to be really confident that the mason and the team have a really good plan for how they're going to ensure that when all is said and done, that wall still retains that character. Same question for the porch, but the porch just didn't, the porch just looked like a beautiful, normal stone porch. Well, you could, if you wipe away the extra mortar. But anyway, so both of those were thoughts and concerns. They are going to do the new foundation, they're digging a hole all the way around the house, 4 feet from the house. I think that's to be able to get a mason on each side of that wall. They're not underpinning this, right? Everything's coming down. And so they're digging, I guess, like a 10-foot trench all the way around the house. So there's room for 9 or 10 feet, let's say. And, we kind of looked around, there was like some, like what would be impacted by that, and there were some trees that were gonna have to go, but there was nothing like major, other than just the impact of what that would be. There's nothing like, that seemed like was gonna be lost because of that. Those trees right there being the exception probably, but those aren't like landmark or historic trees. We did kind of talk about the fence quite a bit. The fence will feel like it's enclosing much more of the yard. Like it definitely feels like the move forward will in turn give much more private yard, and we just wanted to make sure it was 6 feet all the way around, so it wasn't kind of impacting the kind of the feel of the setting there. That it feels quite open there, but we kind of got the feeling like even bringing the fence forward, as long as it stays at 6 feet, it wouldn't impact that too much, at least the look of it. I think that the function will be, quite impactful for the homeowner. But then the other thing it does is the driveway is kind of right there, and it shrinks the driveway down so that if you were going to park a car on that driveway, the only spot to park it is right in front of in the front open space right there. So like if there's a car in the driveway, it's not going to be kind of back anymore. It's going to be right there, and basically that's fine. You can park on the driveway. We wanted to make sure that we couldn't park like too wide on that driveway. It's a really wide curb cut, which is unusual. So that's why the site plan is specifically showing just one car on the site plan. And the chimney, I guess this is a good way to see it from this. You can barely see it from this side. It is there. From the other side, you saw those pictures. Yeah, I think we'll talk about the chimney in discussion. And one thing to note is just that this is it like a Greek revival, or, it's sort of a typical Old West Side house. A lot of them look like this. They've got the overhanging front gable, and then on the sides, they have a flat soffit, so like a level soffit. Some homes on the Old West Side, like the Queen Anne Victorian kind of look, have the soffit that kind of extends like with the rafter. So this is a flat soffit, which I think is they're using that to achieve like the energy goals that they want, and that they've in the packet they're showing how they're doing that while maintaining like all the soffit boards will come off, but then they're going to be replacing them, hopefully the original ones, and putting them back exactly where we're seeing them now. So I think to me, the biggest concerns are, I just want to hear more about the roof, because all of the rafters are coming off, and what I just want to hear about, like so looking at the front gable especially, the same question for the rear gable, how much, what is going to be there, like when all the rafters come off, is that overhang still going to be there? Will this, the soffit boards on the rake, like will the freeze board still be there, or is like what's coming down and what's going back up? On site, we just kind of talked about just generally, but I'd like to hear more specifics about like the gable return and everything. Like, is that coming down and being rebuilt or not? So that's my question. And then the other major question, so the roof and then also just the foundation, I'd like to hear a little more about the plan for, like I said, just rebuilding the foundation without destroying that character. Last comment is just that this is a very complex proposal, I think, and I bet it could be easier if they were proposing an addition and just everything would kind of work. It's, if you just build an addition, you don't need to be so careful about what you're doing, I suppose, but because they're really doing a lot of basement work and then redoing that back portion all within the footprint of the house, I think this makes this more of a complicated proposal. But I appreciate the effort into trying to do this without changing the footprint of the existing house. I think that's to be appreciated. So, so now would the applicant please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please. And basically, you've heard the staff report, you've heard the review committee report, so now this is your turn to, you can kind of make a general comments or comment on any of the questions that have been raised so far.
Okay. Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Casey Valite, and I'm with In Parallel Architects and Builders. We have offices here in Ann Arbor and Grand Rapids, so I'll give you our Ann Arbor address, 4621 Freedom Drive, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48108. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you all, and it was good to walk the site with some of you earlier this week. Hopefully some of the, it sounds like the drawings that we submitted today have been helpful to clarify some of the questions that came up about the foundation, the fence, the roof structure. So I'd be happy to speak really about any part of the application, but maybe I'll just spend a few minutes addressing those areas a little bit further. It sounds like there's still some questions on that. Excuse me one second, I'm just going to grab a drink. Okay. So I'll start with the foundation. It was requested that we invite the mason that would be doing the work to the meeting tonight. And while I appreciate the request, I was not able to do that because we haven't selected a specific mason. We have walked the site with 5 different contractors, 4 of whom were masons, 1 of whom has replaced a basement of his own. So we've gotten a lot of professional input on this, but we'll be doing the final selections hopefully over the next month or two. So I didn't want to bring someone specific. It seemed a little out of sequence, but I did call one of the masons who we walked the site with, who I felt had one of the best plans for addressing the existing foundation. So I'll just walk you through the kind of the steps of the process, as best I can. I will also say that the intent is that our company will be the general contractor as well as the architects. So we would be overseeing all of this work. So I can assure you that what I tell you will be our goals for whoever we select. So the process is actually fairly straightforward. We would disassemble the stonework. There will, likely be power tools needed for like chipping hammers, for example, that would, be only directed at the mortar, the existing mortar joints. The stone is far harder than the mortar, and it's not likely to damage the stone. Once prior to this, though, we would carefully photograph each elevation and document the location of each of the stones, and the stones would be tagged. They'd be set in a pile. Each face of the building or each section of stone would have its own pile, so they wouldn't get mixed together. And then, as David mentioned, there's quite a variety of types of mortar joints on this building as it is now. And so there would be a cleanup process that would happen where particularly the field stone, which is, I'd say, the most caked in mortar, would almost certainly need to be sandblasted to get a lot of the mortar off. And our goal is to make this thing look as close to original as it did, and much better and much cleaner than it does now. So, in fact, I think, at this point, given the state of the porch, particularly, it's really the right thing to do to take it apart and put it back together, even if you were just trying to make it durable, and make it fix the issues that are currently there. So let me see if I'm forgetting. We'll of course do our best to match the original mortar as we can, and to the best of our ability, determine the original mortar joint size. That's much easier to do, of course, where there's not so much tuck pointing, so the north side of the house. But we'll do our best to maybe clean up a mortar joint or two before we take it apart and try to document the size of the mortar joint. Yeah, I think that is generally our approach to kind of taking it apart, cleaning it up, storing it, documenting it. And then the new wall, as we show in our wall section, will be concrete block up to grade. And then we would use the stone from below grade, or excuse me, from basically above grade. So at that point, the mason assured me they would do their best to replace the stones exactly where they are. They did tell me that they have tried this before and it's gone well generally, but just to be realistic, that you're stacking very irregular stones, and sometimes they just can't get them quite back in the right, exact right orientation. They said they would do their best to get it as close as possible, but I can't promise that the perfect orientation of every single stone, but I think to the best of their abilities, they would do that. And at the very least, getting them in the same location. But you have to keep in mind they're irregular shapes and they have to fit together across a very large area. So that's our plan. I will admit there's still a little bit structurally to figure out with current foundation structure code and stacked field stone, and how that will tie into the concrete block. That's not an aspect that's included in our proposal yet, but I can assure you that whatever will happen would not affect its appearance on the outside. There might be some reinforcing that's needed on the inside. The last area of the foundation that maybe I should just briefly mention is the existing CMU block infills. And as Jill mentioned, our plan is to keep those as different from the field stone and the cut stone. So we're proposing a window where there's an existing infill on the back side. Yeah, that one right there. Which would be a window into the new bathroom. And then on the northeast corner, planning to basically use CMU block all the way up and parge coat that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our plan. Are there any questions or comments on the foundation?
May I ask a question quickly?
Of course.
Casey, right here in this corner, see where the old foundation meets the new one on that corner? Does this wall continue on the inside? Like, is there another 10 or 12 feet of stone foundation wall, or has that all been blown out on the interior? I only bring it up because it might be helpful to have a little extra stone.
Yeah. Well, thank you for,
Around.
yeah. I believe it does continue. I can't say whether it's definitely a masonry wall. I cannot say whether it's CMU
Okay.
or stone.
Okay.
But to that point, keep in mind, we'll have a lot of stone that's currently underground that we'll be bringing up too. So we have that in mind too.
Is that stone similar to what we're seeing here, or is it more like a rubble, where it's just a
Well,
bunch of
as
sizes
you go
dumped
lower,
together?
it becomes more rubble.
Yeah.
But, definitely for some distance below grade, this stonework continues.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, absolutely.
Regarding whatever your conversations with the mason come to be, from the look of it when I was on site and when I'm looking here, the mortar joints, because they were done at different times by different contractors, I see different mortar joint widths, and I also see different depths of rake. Rake is how much of the mortar do you brush away to create a reveal. You sometimes have a very deep rake where there's like a crevice between the stones, which casts them in higher relief, but it exposes them more to water damage. And then a very shallow rake, it's almost right smooth with the face. And it's a mixed bag of those here. And this is a question as much for us as it is for the architect. In the case of that, when you're now going to do it all at once, consistently with a mason, do we have a preference, or is there, there are directions, what width mortar joint, it doesn't seem to me like we want to replicate the variety of mortar joint widths or depth of rake. I think there should be something consistent, but is there a preference that we want to see, and where do we go with that?
Can I just add one piece of information, which is, I also noticed this, and from my observation on the north side is like the least disrupted mortar on the house. And, so to me, that's the closest to original joint we have.
And replicate that.
So I would probably,
Yeah.
But it's also worth noting that like different types of stone, might have a different mortar joint. Like there's field stone and there's these very large cut stones. So, I could consider that there might be, a specific joint use for the field stone and a specific joint for the cut stone.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I was thinking more with the field stone itself. Yeah, I think there's going to be a different type of mortar joint for cut stone. It's easier to match because the faces have been made smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other foundation questions for the applicant here? Okay.
Okay. Next, I'll move on to the roof. I apologize that those building sections are a little washed out, but I might ask Jill if you could try to zoom in on maybe the existing section. And
Give me 1 second here, I'm going to open
Yeah.
a different document.
Okay.
See if that looks better.
yeah, I'm hopeful we can get it to work. Did it print? It sounds like you have prints. Did it print out okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I can at least speak to that. So, during the walkthrough, there were a number of questions that I very much appreciated, kind of getting at exactly how the proposed new trusses would come together with the existing wall structure and windows and some existing elements on the house. And so we took a little time this week to further develop the drawings to show, our thinking on this. So in the top right corner of this sheet, you can see an existing wall detail. And I think one of the questions had to do with how can one remove a 2x4 rafter and put in a truss and not obstruct the window below it. And from the best of our abilities to tell here it's coming up on the screen. Top right, if you're able to zoom into the top right anymore. There we go. Yeah. as far in as you can, there, perfect. Okay, so at the very top of that wall, you can see a top plate in a kind of darker rectangle. So that's the existing top plate. Just below it, you can see where we believe the top of the window framing is. We have not opened up the walls to, check existing header sizes, so we're presuming worst case scenario, there's nothing there other than a 2x4. So, but in any case, you can see kind of where those existing elements are. You can also see the overhang, we believe is just extension of the rafter tail with a fascia board and then a soffit. Beneath the soffit is a frieze board that gets interrupted by window trim. So in this section, you're seeing the window trim, which is not historic material. It's like aluminum wrapped 2x wood material. And at the top of that, there's a piece of wood trim that does run all along the soffit, underneath the soffit. And that runs around the whole house. The frieze board runs around the whole house, but as I said, it gets interrupted every time there's a window. The windows are right up against the soffit. So, our intention is to rebuild everything on the outside just as it is in terms of its location, its proportion, and using as much of the salvage material as we can. And so the way we're proposing to do that, is of course to very carefully take down, I would say, at the very least, the fascia board, the soffit, the piece of trim, which is presumably helping to hold the soffit up, and the frieze board. Of course, if we get into it and we don't have to take something off, we wouldn't. But I think at a minimum, that's what we'd be planning to remove, carefully store away, and save for reinstallation. And then the rafters themselves would be removed along with the collar ties, which you can see kind of in the top, at the top of that section, which form the ceiling. And then if we could we zoom in on the proposed section, kind of in that same location? Yes, there you can see. Okay, so I want to point out, we did very faintly indicate the existing top plate, which is it's just above the kind of two dark top plates at the top of the wall. Is everybody able to see that? Mm-hmm. So that's where the existing top plate is. So we are proposing to lower that top plate approximately 4 inches to gain enough space for what's called an energy heel on the truss. So that will just allow for a little more insulation in that part of the house. And still leaves room for a window header if we need it without changing the window. And then the tail of that new truss would extend out just like the rafter does now as a 2x4, and basically give us the same geometry that's there now. So just be a matter of putting everything back, just like it was. So it shouldn't be too complicated. I mean, geometrically anyway, it's all trying to be what was there now, but the structure of the truss just allows us to open up the floor plan for the upper level and provide more ceiling height without having a really intense network of columns and beams coming down through the house. We did design this thing without the trusses and trying to preserve the existing framing, and it just got to be quite the network of columns and beams and really started to negatively influence the spaces below. So that's kind of how we got to this idea of the truss. So hopefully I've answered your questions, but please, what questions
Can
are
you
there?
comment? Same sort of question, but so can you just specifically say what's going on with, let's talk about the front facade. There's an overhang with the soffit, there's a rake board, and then there's the returns. there's fascia board, so all of those
Sure.
things are character defining features of the house. So like, are all of those coming off and being put back on, or are like the returns staying, or the overhang staying, or are you
Yeah.
rebuilding the overhang?
That's a good question. I mean, certainly our intent is, if they do come off, to put them back exactly as they are. But to be honest, I haven't fully thought through the sort of sequencing of that. I mean, I could imagine a version where that wall is somehow braced during, during the truss installation, and we don't use a gable end truss, or maybe we sister a gable end truss onto it.
Right.
I mean, that seems like best case scenario. So that's for the street facing facade. I think that would be our intention. But I admittedly need to look into that a little further structurally.
Okay.
So on the rear facing side, which I know it doesn't matter quite as much, that's a different situation, because we'll have a new, dormer, new gable end right up against it. So maybe it's not as critical on that face to do something like that.
Okay. Any other questions on like the roof removal for the applicant?
We didn't really talk about, I don't think we talked about this on site, but this might be a sequencing question. I know there's no new work proposed for the dormer, but as part of the roof removal and reconstruction, how would they be, if at all, impacted by that reconstruction?
Yeah, that's a good question. So currently, our plan is to basically overbuild the dormer onto the trusses to match. Of course, similar, we'll take all of the exterior trim off the dormer. I'm not sure if would we be able to bring up a photo of the dormer, Jill? I can tell you the page. Let's see here. Best page for that. So HDC 3B0, probably, and yeah, that top image there. So yeah, you can see as far as trim goes, the trim on the dormer and the returns that jut past do match basically the rest of the house. And our intent would be to remove that trim, and although, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't see why we couldn't, I'm wondering if it'd be possible to similarly brace that facade during construction. I don't know for sure. But we have to rebuild the roof structure, because the roof structure of the dormer is actually even underbuilt, less built than the main house. So our plan is to overbuild that with rafter framing on top of the new trusses to bring those up to code, basically.
Okay.
And the detail, I mean, the overhang detail would be, constructed exactly as it is now. It's applied to the outside. It's not like in the case of the eave, where the rafters extend out. It's something that's been applied onto the facade.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Does that answer? Yeah.
Any other roof questions from the commission? It does not look like it. Are there any other questions, or did you have more comments? This foundation roof, was there any other comments on your list? And then we'll see if there's more questions.
I believe that Jill did a great job of running you all through the proposal and hitting all the important points of our proposal. So I don't believe I have anything further to add.
I had a question just
Sure.
on the, because there were several different options for the egress cover.
Yeah.
You showed a few different pictures, so what are you proposing for that?
Yeah, we can go to So we did show a few different products.
Yeah.
They are, we haven't selected a specific product yet, but generally what we have selected is some sort of aluminum frame which opens on some sort of a hinged mechanism, which would be either clad with plexiglass or some sort of transparent material, or it would be more of a grate, like an aluminum grate. And, our intention is just that it's something that would prevent animals from going down in the window well, as well as, people from falling in it accidentally, and is something that can be operable from the outside. If I'm honest, one reason we haven't put maybe as much thought into this as the rest of the proposals, that in our minds it's behind the fence, so it won't be visible from the street. But it was brought up at our walkthrough that somebody, in theory, could take down the fence and then it would be visible. So I think our intent is just that it's minimal. It's built from, durable material like aluminum, and allows as much light in as possible as well.
So basically, it's CMU more or less up to grade.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
above grade, we're going to see either aluminum grating or plexiglass. Is that-
Yes, exactly,
is that-
yeah.
okay.
Kind of, there's a section on the screen right now that shows like a kind of just a sloped element that would sit atop the CMU.
Yeah.
And I think that's our intent, is it would look something like that.
Very good. Any other questions at all for the applicant here? No? Okay. Well, Casey, thank you
Okay.
very much. Really appreciate all those extra comments. Thank you. We'll move on to the next. We might call you back up in a moment, just so you know. But please take a seat. We're going to move on to the public comment, I believe. Yes. So I would now like to open the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application at 549 South First Street. Public comment may be made in person or by calling in using the information displayed in the meeting agenda and the video feed. Do we have anyone calling in?
No one in the Zoom
Okay,
room.
no one calling in, and no one seems to be approaching the podium here, so I will now close the public hearing portion of this application. And I will ask if any commissioner would like to make a motion. Did someone over here while I wasn't looking? Commissioner Fortner? Okay, please.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 549 South First Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to rebuild both the main roof and rear addition roof, alter a non-original window, remove the chimney, remove an attic vent in the front gable, remove the stone foundation and porch walls, and rebuild the stone portion above grade. Replace wood basement windows with aluminum-clad wood hopper windows, convert an existing basement window into an egress window, install a mini-split, and install a wood fence that is 6 to 8 feet tall. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationships to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for alterations, additions, windows, masonry, and roofs, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, particularly as they pertain to additions and safety codes.
Support.
Okay, that was moved by Commissioner Fortner and seconded by Commissioner Quijano. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Do we want to?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. Why don't we break it up into some different sections, and let's start at the bottom and go up, I guess. So we'll start with the foundation, and let's talk about the foundation. Do you have a comment?
Well, I appreciate the learning more about the process that they're considering. Gives me a bit more confidence in the work that's going to be done. And that the mason, that there's a supposedly strongly considering has done this before, it sounds like, so that's good, but, yeah, it's gonna be a little tricky to get it just right, but I feel good about that proposal.
Any other comments on the foundation? Is anyone not buying the, what they're going to do with the foundation? Or it seems like I'm not seeing anyone saying that. So I also agree. I think that with Commissioner Kahano, and I would add to that Casey's comment about them being the general contractor as well,
Yes.
just gives me faith that yeah, it's going to be a process, but that they're going to handle it. Okay, so there's some window changes. They're removing the front gable vent thing, like everything but the roof that they want to do to the exterior. We'll get to the chimney and we'll get to the roof, but I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand for any of those things. So let's get to the roof then. It seems like when they're done, it will look how it looks now, but new, newer. I guess the shingles will be new and everything else will be kind of renovated. But it's going to be tarps and, scaffolding and stuff in the meantime. But
Yeah.
anyone have pause with that, or have we heard enough and seen the drawings and heard from Casey, and what do we think?
Hope it's a dry summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is interesting because not many of the homes that we see go this route. Like I was saying on site, if you're, a lot of homes do want to cathedralize, the roof, meaning put the insulation from the floor up into the roof so they gain that space, but most of them do it some other way, keeping the rafters in place. But it just sounds like this house, it's just not an option for what the applicant is trying to achieve, I guess both energy-wise, energy-saving-wise, which is commendable, and also just the program that they're trying to achieve in the house. So this is a different approach. I don't see anyone seemingly with an issue with it. Last comment on the roof? No.
I would just
Commissioner
say,
Kaplan, yeah.
I would just say in experience with building roofs, you can push rafters 24 inches apart if they're beefier, like 2x6s or
Oh, sure,
2x10s. Or you can get away with a thinner, like a 2x4 if they're 16 on center or closer. But what they've got to start with, what they're working with, is the smallest type of rafter with the greatest distance between them. So I think it's risky as it is. I don't think that's a type of construction that is very safe to keep. I would think that the paneling would, or the decking would sag or something like that. Surprised.
Yeah, it is surprising. I think it's very common in a lot of the historic homes to be 2x4 rafters, 24 on center. I think it's the old growth wood. It's the fact that they're actually 2 inches by 4 inches
Right,
instead of cut down.
dimensional, yep.
And it's just the sheer strength of all those old nails holding all these homes together. So then, how about the chimney? Let's talk about the chimney, one of our favorite subjects here on the Historic District Commission. Any comments on removing the chimney?
I have some concern about losing it. I mean, I know it's not the most decorative showstopper chimney, but it's part of the exterior features of the home. And I would be sad to see it go. Yeah. And just looking around the rest of the homes on that street, it really was, you could see all of them. Defines character on that street.
Agree, disagree?
I agree.
Okay. Can you elaborate?
Just, I think it's a character-defining feature of that house, of that neighborhood, of those houses in the neighborhood. And that to remove it kind of takes away some of the character and the definition of that age of house.
Mm-hmm. This is true. Okay. There it is, right there. Okay. Yeah, I think that my take is that I think it's a character-defining feature, but to me, it's like a historic window on the rear of a house that you don't want to lose it, but for what the owner wants to do, it gets lost because it's not, well, that's where the metaphor doesn't really work. I guess what I'm saying is a rear window of a house when there's a rear addition does get lost, and that's a character defining feature. So there's just an example of we sometimes do approve removing character defining features for the right reason.
Yes, but that is not seen, not in the public view, your example.
That is true.
Right, yeah.
That is very true.
In other cases where we've seen where, they could be supported within an attic, don't have that here.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it's feasible.
Well, maybe it could be supported by the new structure.
Trusses.
They're putting new structure there.
Right, yeah, not to say that they couldn't remove it on the first.
The interior.
Interior of the
Yeah.
home, but to somehow retain the exterior appearance.
Okay. So
Not sure
those
if
are
that's something
chimney
that would be
comments.
Considered.
We might circle back to that with the motion, but let's just talk about the rest here. Well, I guess before we move on, does anyone want to speak in favor of removing the chimney? Because, for any reason, okay. All right, I guess besides me, I feel
No,
like. I'm
Mr.
okay.
Chair, I
Yes.
think I concur with your sentiments is, they're going through considerable expense to reuse the stone foundation. I think that, if I were to pick and choose what's a more important character defining feature, I would certainly look at that stone foundation. I think that certainly, I have a great deal of confidence in the architecture team to figure out how they could keep it if that's what the decision of this body is. But I think it's perhaps an overly costly and somewhat unnecessary, saving it for the sake of saving it.
Thank you. Any other chimney comments?
Well, I would
Yep.
agree that it's, except for the non-historic windows,
Yep.
it's the least impactful of the things that they're proposing.
Very good. Kate, you have a chimney comment or something? Just hold on, because maybe we'll have more, and then you can come up and talk. So let's move the chimney aside for a second. We've got the fence, the fact that they're digging this 4-foot trench around the house. Anything there worth discussing?
Well, I was
Commissioner Porter?
thinking before I think you addressed my concern that this seemed just, a quick little scan around on Google Maps of the neighborhood that's, I noticed is 3 years old, that there weren't any other fences like that so close to the street, that big, that close, that sort of solid. But I think you said you didn't think it would impact, it's hard to get a feel without being there, that moving that 6-foot solid, pretty solid fence and pretty good, length, that close to the street, didn't have, was compatible in the neighborhood, in the context of the neighborhood.
A lower fence would be more compatible. It's a good point. It didn't, I don't know. I don't want to speak.
I had some reservations about how close it was moving to the front, that front corner of the house. I know we've got, that there's a window. I don't know if you can, there might be another photo. There's a window kind of close to that corner. There we go. But, the fence could be removed.
It's more in the context
not
of the
as
neighborhood. I don't think
permanent.
it has any impact on the house so much.
Yeah. I mean, right now, if that front open area does feel quite spacious, and with the neighbor's driveway right there as well, it's just very open. But it didn't disturb me too much, picturing walking down the street.
And,
There-
it's fencing, it's temporary.
Yeah.
There's handfuls of this, it's not like every house has it or something, but they're scattered around the neighborhood. I would say 6-foot high fences right at the,
House corner.
right at the house corner, exactly. Any other comments about site stuff? Okay. And then let me just see if there's, what about the skylights? They're both on the north side. I think this is kind of typical for what we see, so, okay. And then I'm guessing, no, it's just speaking windows here, so the other thing would maybe be the removal of the basement windows, but again, I think this is pretty common and appreciated to, to be installing what they are installing in the basement window openings, so I'm guessing there won't be any comments? Okay. So now, yes, Ms. Thatcher,
Sort of random comment.
great.
You should follow up with me or John Barrett, because I'm looking at the site plan drawing now and realizing that even though the parking is in a driveway, it's entirely in the front yard, it doesn't lead to a legal parking space, I'm realizing, because the fence is in the way. If the fence had an opening, a gate wide enough for a car, 8 feet? Is 8 feet
Can
really
you-
wide
can you-
enough for a car?
Can you, Casey, come on up to the?
Yeah. So if the driveway that you're showing on here leads to a gate that leads to a parking space, then you can keep the gate shut and park in the driveway in front of the house. But you can't just stub off the parking at the new fence location,
Sure.
because then it's not a legal parking space. And no parking
Right.
is required, but, I mean, this much room, I'm assuming you'd want to be able to pull a car off the street.
So if we didn't show a parking space, then it would be acceptable.
If you didn't show a parking space, yes, but then you'd have to get rid of your curb cut.
You'd have to get rid of the curb. Can't you have a
You'd have to get rid
driveway
of the
without a
driveway.
parking space?
Yeah, you'd have to get rid of the driveway and the curb cut, and you would get a ticket if you ever parked there.
Didn't you say on site that you could park in a driveway in the front open space?
You can, that's why I'm saying if the driveway extends farther back, like as if there were a gate wide enough for a car, so that you could pull through behind that fence,
So
then
you
that would
can
be the
only
legal
park in the
parking
front open space if the driveway extends past the front open space?
Yes, if it leads to a legal parking spot, and a legal parking spot has to be behind the front wall of the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I
So
didn't
this
pick
is
up on
why
this on
it's
site.
helpful when the Historic District Coordinator is also a city planner.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I just want to say, I mean, we have actually very recently worked on another project where we went very deep into the parking code for a house. So I do know what you're talking about, Jill, but my assumption here was that we're not proposing we're not proposing anything new for the driveway. We're really not. We are not changing the driveway at all. The fence is coming forward, but it's not like cutting off the driveway. The driveway does not currently go to the back or to the side yard. Currently, the parking spot is in the front. We're not changing that at all. I guess I just want to be clear about that.
How far is there right now between the current fence and the front corner of the house?
About 15 feet. It's shown on our site plan, but let me just look. Could you pull, if you can pull
So
that?
that's pretty close to the length of a car, which is why I don't think this was probably questioned in the past, because you got most of your car behind the front corner of the house.
But I think
if you
because of the
pull up the fence.
landscaping, that's not where he's parking, or that's not where the parking's. I want to say there's a photograph on.
So let me phrase it this way. When you apply for this, it would get denied, because you're moving a fence to a new location. You'll only have parking in the front yard, where you used to be able to park farther back.
You can't, though.
You're making it shallower.
I guess I'm saying, right now, the driveway does not extend past the front of the house. So we're not
But the
actually.
gravel goes all the way to the fence. Maybe you don't park there.
No, there's a gravel walkway from
Let me
the
check.
driveway to the door, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. That's not a parking space, though. I don't believe. So right there by the garbage
Jill, is your
cans.
concern that we're going to approve the fence location and then have to like reapprove it or something, or?
Well,
are you-
just that you won't be able to park anymore in your front yard
Sure.
by virtue of moving that fence.
But can we approve the fence and then they can do
Move it
it, do
around
something
as
else
needed.
with it?
Yeah,
If this
absolutely,
gets stopped
absolutely.
in,
So
yeah.
I wanted that more as a warning,
Okay.
that we really need to sit down and look this up, or even better, just call John Barrett and ask him.
Sure.
And show him the site plan, because he'll be able to tell you right away. And maybe there's a grandfathering thing here, but since you're moving the fence and making the whole area shallower for cars, I'm concerned about it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
All right, and while you're up here, Casey, you had a comment on the chimney, or on the roof of the chimney?
Yeah, if I may comment
Yeah.
on the chimney.
Yes.
I mean, I understand this, like, maybe a difficult one. There sounds like there's different opinions. I have some practical concerns, and maybe also just a philosophical comment. So, first of all, this chimney, it is very small, and it is set back pretty far on the house. It is only visible from one side of the house. So I guess to me, it's relatively a fairly minor element on this house. I could certainly understand a larger chimney with more of a presence being something to really be concerned about. As I can understand the foundation or the front porch, these are elements that one would immediately notice when walking by the house. But the chimney is really, it's really set back. It's very short, and it's generally small. So I guess, for me, I will say thinking about this as a builder and an architect, to try to preserve this chimney and structurally support it within the fairly narrow attic that we're proposing is going to be a challenge. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's possible. Anything's possible. But, constructability-wise, you're asking builders to support a very heavy old mass of bricks up 30 feet in the air. That is, it seems a bit dangerous. I mean, construction is inherently dangerous, but this is going well beyond what is normally required in terms of, risk for a project like this. And not only that, then you're also, living with this very heavy mass of bricks above your head for the rest of your life in this house. That seems a little bit concerning to me. I mean, yes, we can design this thing to be supported and think about wind loads and, other loads to consider, but it is quite a challenge, I think. And the other thing to understand about the chimney is it gets its integrity from its base and from being tied together all the way to the ground. So now you're supporting a very heavy object on skinny wood trusses way up in the air. And it's a lot. So yes, it's doable. I understand that it is a character defining feature, but to me, it just seems like a relatively minor one. And the cost to preserve it in this project, and I think a safety risk. I think it is a legitimate safety risk. I saw Jill mention safety as a concern. I do think it's a potential safety concern for the public or whoever's living in this house and whoever's building this project. So I think just practically, please keep that in mind as you consider this proposal. Is it really worth the effort and the risk? And the last thing I just ask you consider is the function of the chimney. When this thing was built, there was smoke coming out of it. It was venting. It's venting gases. It has a very important function for the house to let the house breathe and exhaust unsafe air. But our proposal is to change this from being a forced air system using older technologies to trying to be more energy efficient and trying to use newer technologies that make the air cleaner to breathe and don't require this kind of venting. So, I mean, for me, from a historic perspective, there was a day when you walk down the street and there's smoke or gas coming out of these chimneys, and that is, to me, I think, a part of the character of the neighborhood when you have a chimney. But if you're living in a neighborhood where there are all these chimneys and nothing's coming out of them, to me, that's a very different situation, I guess. And so I guess I just ask you to consider that this is going to be a dead chimney. And we're just propping it up. It's not serving any function for the house. So those 3 points, I think, I just ask you to consider them. I'm generally very supportive of trying to preserve this house on the exterior, reusing materials, salvaging what we can, preserving the character. But for me, this is a very minor feature, and I think the risk does not outweigh the cost to do it. I don't think it's worth the cost and the risk, I guess.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's wrap up discussion, and then we'll have a vote here. I think that I think we've sort of discussed all the elements. I'll just ask if anyone has any further comments here. I think that I'd like to leave the motion as is and vote on that motion.
I have a question.
Yes.
David. And some of it, I just want to make sure that we're, as proposed. That's sort of how we've, covered everything. They're going to remove the roof and put it as proposed. And I think that the application did say something about maintaining all of the roof geometry, as you mentioned. But I'm not sure it's, so I want to confirm that, or should we add that to the motion? And the other point was about the mortar joints and rakes. I don't think that was a part, because it hadn't been discussed in as detail. Do we want to, so I don't think that is as proposed.
Okay.
Your comment about matching the north side mortar joints, do we want to add that to the motion?
I think that those are two really good points. I'm almost positive that in the application, it says that the roof slope, roof ridge height, and soffits will all remain the same. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct, and it is.
Okay.
Right, so that's in there. But is there something in there about matching mortar or?
I think it says match the appearance, but to Steve's point, you don't want to match the appearance of
Right.
some of it.
Yeah, we wouldn't say match existing appearance, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
To
think
read
you
our
want to
language,
do
there's
that.
definitely several pages about the foundation wall.
Yeah,
But,
is there anything in there about the mortar joints?
If you're suggesting to add it to add that comment, I would totally support that. That is definitely our intention.
Yeah, okay. So, this is a tricky though, like, because, Commissioner Fortner, what would you recommend the wording of that to be? Because there is a lot of varied stonework. Yes, is there something
I
there?
just want to point out that on page HDC 1A.0.
Yeah,
We do reference the mortar, we say, we just say with mortar to match the existing color above grade. We don't specifically write out the joint width or depth, rake depth. I think that level of detail did more emerge in our conversation on Monday, and I guess we just didn't get the language
Right.
written out.
yeah, that's okay. So we're just going to add something to the motion that will be, I think, concise, but mention just something about the mortar. But Ms. Thatcher, isn't there a appropriate, not appropriate guideline concerning mortar? And could we just maybe take the language right from there?
Maybe. Did I put it in the staff report, are you saying?
I think that you read one about
Oh,
mortar,
okay, let me go back to that.
yeah, in the
Yeah, I
presentation.
added some
Oh,
stuff
not
about
containing
mortar.
Portland cement.
Yeah, yeah.
That was part of the detail.
All right, let me get over to.
But, or Commissioner Fortner, did you have language that you were thinking? It just seems tricky to know.
We don't want to say match, because
Right.
we know that may not be possible. To using the north side foundation wall as a,
Well, the north side foundation wall has like the ashlar, like cut stone, so that would be appropriate for the other places where there are that, but then there's the mix of regular stone, or field stone, whatever you would call it.
well, I thought the one picture we looked at was had field stone.
Yeah, there's sort of, okay, so what does this say? Oh, this doesn't, oh, duplicating old mortar in composition, color, texture. Can we just say, and mortar as appropriate in the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines? Is that too vague for everyone, or?
Oh, I think there has to be, I think there has to be an element of flexibility to it, you know, I mean.
Absolutely,
We're
yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
Yes.
odd-shaped stones
Yeah.
and, you know, I think.
Right, so that would be sort of a
Yeah.
broad, something
Right.
in there about it, but broad enough that they could achieve it, yes?
I think that Casey said something just conversationally when we brought this up that I thought made sense, which was looking at the existing foundation for the oldest and least disturbed portion of the fieldstone wall and then emulating it. Because I think what we're really trying to avoid is matching to the really sloppily repaired things that have been done patchwork willy-nilly over time. But there were places, I remember them, I don't remember where, there were places where the fieldstone looked pretty much original, and those mortar joints were consistent. So if we just sort of riffed off of that, I think that works.
Yeah, I think
Word-
emulate was the verb I was
Emulate,
trying
there we
to
go,
think
okay,
of. Not match, not
Oh,
replicate.
let's hear, Jill
Okay,
has
so
a,
adding a condition, possibly, excuse me, to the motion, on the condition that the masonry foundation is rebuilt, duplicating the mortar composition, historic joint, and rake size, color, and texture.
okay.
Instead of rake, I'm going to use joint profile, because I
Okay.
think it's a little,
That's what it says in the
yeah.
guidelines, joint profile.
Duplicating duplicating the historic mortar composition, joint size, joint profiles, I'll say joint sizes, because there's multiple joint profiles, color and texture. I mean, we're not going to go out and measure between every stone and compare it to documentary photographs.
Well, someone might.
But if you end up with a 3-inch wide joint, you know, where
Yeah.
clearly there used to be a 1-inch wide joint, that's a problem. Okay.
All right, that was good. Any other comments there on the motion? Okay.
Were the first, were Kathy and Jess okay with that? Kathy, do you want to make that amendment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Well, then, that was some good discussion, but now it's time to vote. So I will say, all those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. The application's been approved. Please note, you must apply for any required permits, obviously, before starting. And, yeah, congratulations.
Took a while, but we got there.
Yeah. Okay. So that was it for hearings.
Yep. On to new business.
Let's go on to new business, and I do not believe there is any new
Yeah, there
business.
is.
There is, of course there is.
We need to appoint a nominating committee.
Oh, yeah, that's right, the nominating committee.
It's in our bylaws that we do this. And so we need 1 or 2 people to volunteer to email or talk to people that they think would be the best slate of officers to put forward. And then next month, we will vote on a slate, that one or another one.
Okay.
We're coming at this from a little bit weird timing. We usually do the elections in October, but we had 3 members leave, and
Right.
so we've got some new officers, and now we've got new members, so we're playing catch-up a little bit, but.
And Commissioner White had been the nominating
Commissioner
committee
White
for
was the nominating
like a decade and a half or something? Yeah,
years.
right.
So would any one of you like to
Large shoes to
volunteer
fill.
do that? It may be an easy job because you may just be nominating the current officers.
Right. Take, yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's an easy job. Or it could be an easy job,
Sure,
is what staff is saying.
I can do it.
All right.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ben. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Calderon. Okay, is that all the new business, or
Yep.
do we have more new business?
That's it.
Okay, so let's move on then to H, approval of minutes. There were 2 months of minutes that were emailed out. Thank you to the city staff for compiling the minutes and for emailing them. So we'll take a look at those. Yep.
This might be a good moment for me to say that Mia Gale, who's been with us as long as I've been here almost, is retiring
Oh, my.
imminently. So you don't usually get to see her anyway, but you probably won't be talking to her or emailing with her. But Courtney Manor, who's been in planning for a couple of years, is now doing the work of 4 people, and she's handling the HDC as well. And she's doing a bang-up job. So if you can't get me for some reason, you know, when you would normally fall back to Mia, Courtney Manor is who you want to go to.
Very
I'll
good.
search Mia for the emails too, so I was
Yeah,
a bit
yep,
confused.
yep, you're going to have to switch to Courtney,
Yeah.
yep.
All right, has anyone found any corrections to the minutes?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check, but I believe
What month are you on?
September.
Okay.
Figured we'd start with September and then go to October.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Where is it? Sorry. So the item F4, that was the barrier-free entrance
Okay.
application.
Oh, yeah,
It said that the applicant was available to respond to questions. but
Oh.
I believe the applicant was not available.
That's correct.
Thank you for catching that. Yeah, the applicant was available. I guess that was supposed to say the applicant was not available.
I believe so.
Right.
Yes.
Good point, thank you.
That was all I had for September.
Okay, so September, then moving on to October.
It was a similar item.
Similar item. Let's hear it.
I believe item F1, the patio application Same thing, was the applicant present?
I don't think
No,
anybody was.
the applicant was not present, is what the minutes should say.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Great. Okay, so as corrected, we will approve those minutes. Okay, so now we'll move on to I, reports from commissioners. Is there any, do we have any reports from commissioners? No. Okay, so that gets us to J, assignments. So now that's for the review committee in December. What date is that? Should say on the agenda.
December 11th.
Okay, December 11th. Any takers for the review committee?
All right.
Great.
Thank you, Ben.
That's at noon on December 11th.
Excuse me.
Anybody else?
Looks like Commissioner Smith is checking his schedule.
I cannot do Mondays.
Yeah. It's at noon for half the year, and then it switches to
When it
5.
switches to later, I'm
Yeah.
happy to pick up.
Yeah,
those.
that's typical, where some people are noon and some people are 5, so you'll have an opportunity.
I will have to check.
Okay. Why don't you check,
Yeah.
and then if Commissioner Fortner can't do it and Commissioner Ross can't do it,
Just
then
let me know, and then I'll ask Jennifer if you
Yeah.
can't do it.
I can do it if
Okay.
you're on to strike 2. Let me just check before I say that. December 11th. Yeah,
Okay.
I can do it if they can't.
Okay. Sounds good.
Very good. Okay, so now we're on to reports from staff. Anything to report?
I do not.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I do. Old Fourth Ward surveying is starting on Monday.
Oh, that's
So if
exciting.
you see people walking around with cameras and
Oh, wow.
iPads and taking pictures and.
That's so exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll be here for a week.
And then when they're
Pray for good
done,
weather.
can they like present to us or something, like what they did? I mean, that would be really
Oh,
interesting.
great.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Now we're on to L, concerns of commissioners. I just had a thought, I just learned this, I think when everyone else did, that Mia is retiring. I feel like we should maybe, have a commission acknowledgement of just all the help that she's done for us over the years.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
does anyone want to kind of take the lead on that, so we don't have Jill do that work? Anyone feeling grateful in their hearts at the moment?
Would anyone maybe just get a card?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could bring it to the
perfect.
next meeting,
Who can buy
put something nice in it. You
That
can
would be
sign it.
amazing.
That would
What
be-
a great
she would
idea.
love that. She would
I
love that.
can bring a card to the next meeting.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah.
all right, thank you for that. Will that be soon enough we'll mail
yeah,
it to
Yeah, that'll be
Mia?
okay.
Yeah.
She'll be here through sometime in January.
Very good. Oh, that would be
Okay.
perfect timing then. We'll get it in December. I think that'll be really nice.
That's a really
She was
nice
leaving
idea.
next week.
No, I mean.
She's not returning emails starting next week. She's
She'll be in
leaving.
the office,
Okay.
but she's not officially retiring for a while.
Can we be
Okay,
back?
very good.
That's a great idea. Thank you all.
Any other concerns of commissioners? I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on to M, communication. Any communications this month? No. Okay, very good. So I now adjourn the November 9th, 2023 Historic District Commission meeting. Thank you all very much.
Very good.
Yeah.